blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding from the words I spit. So sharp, so freezing, so cold. Behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts peeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. And I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go lie at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have...
Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Secular Activism Unfiltered, and today I have a special guest, Chad Harris. I'm gonna leave it up to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Chad Harris. I grew up in a cult, and that's pretty much what my activism is based on. It was a Christian nationalist, kind of apocalyptic cult, and I spoke out against it in a little series called Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, and yeah, I have since been taking to TikTok, YouTube, and wherever else I can to speak out about basically how we got here in the current Christian nationalism mess that we see throughout the country and what we can do about it.
So I guess I'm gonna have to just press mute whenever I'm not talking because somehow the echo is back.
Okay.
But I want to thank you for coming on. And the question I'm gonna ask you kind of is kind of silly, but were you ever religious? That's the first I like to
Big
ask
time.
all my guests and kind of give a brief deconstructing story, just brief.
Sure. So I grew up in an independent fundamental Baptist preacher's home. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, the IFB is basically the kind of Baptist that came about because they thought the Southern Baptists were too liberal. So we were very much, kind of reclusive or, didn't play nicely with the other denominations. We were very fundamentalist, King James only, Bible literalists. And then we joined a cult called the Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, which was run by a man named Bill Gothard. Is the same cult that the Duggars of X-Teen Kids and Counting were part of as well. At some point, my family went over to the Netherlands and Belgium when I was about 12 years old, and we tried to take American fundamentalism over there to spread it to the Netherlands and Belgium. That did not work out well. And eventually I came back to the States, completely homeschooled in this cult without any real skills or anything. And I started working for a church where, the pastor of that church, after 1 year of working there, his wife left and lobbied charges of abuse against him. And he resigned the church. And then a month later, he came back with her as if nothing had ever happened, saying, everything's fine now, guys. I want to be a preacher again. And I was like, I smell a rat here. Something's desperately wrong. Turns out this had happened in a previous church he had pastored. And that was my first real foray into seeing just how corrupt the church I was in was, because they voted him back in. And me and several other people opposed him. And when he came back in, I was like, well, we did all the right things, and yet he still took over the church. And even my dad, who was very much against him, said, well, things like this just happen in the church sometimes. We can't really talk about it. And then I started researching like other instances in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church, of abuse cases being swept under the rug, preachers being moved around church to church. And that started really raising a lot of questions in my head about, wait, why is this a systemic problem? We're supposed to be the good guys here. And then eventually, Bill Gothard himself had several charges of sexual harassment and abuse levied against him, and he had to resign the IBLP. And that was pretty much when it all came tumbling down for me. I was like, not only is the church I'm in wrong, but the people that provided my basic education were in the wrong too. I didn't sign up to hurt people. So I eventually left fundamentalism for those reasons. Went on a bit of a journey to try to find my own truth. And I gotta say, the more I looked into atheism and skepticism, the more I said, this actually makes a lot of sense. And I started finding, resources through them to a lot of the education I missed out as a kid. And I'm by no means a smart person or an expert on anything, but I will say, having left religion entirely and learned more about critical thinking and learn more about skepticism and humanism, I have found a much better life through that.
Yeah, I will say that because it was another church not too long ago where the pastor got charged with child molestation, whatever, and the members basically kept him on and just said, we don't have any children in the group, so no children are allowed because we like him. And that's some crazy stuff. And I grew up, well, I didn't grow up, but when I got in high school, I joined the ICOC, International Church of Christ. And so I'm fine. So it was one situation, I'll talk about it deeper later, tomorrow. But it was a situation where one of the head leadership was molesting children. And they still kept raising them up higher and higher position.
That's one thing that I have noticed, like in those situations, it's always, everyone always rallies to protect the position and to protect the leaders rather than the victims. Like, above all else, we must protect the hierarchy rather than tend to the people who have been hurt. And I just couldn't be on board with that. I was like, I'm out.
Exactly. And that's really, really sad that we live in that kind of society. And I'm so glad, I was one that had to speak up and stuff when I saw that happened. And I started getting shunned because I did speak up. But now, you went through the process, the fundamental Baptist. See, when I was a kid, I thought it was just Baptist. I didn't know it was different sections of Baptist because I grew up like in a Southern Baptist type of environment. So I was like, fundamental, what's this different kind of Baptist? Baptist is Baptist. But anyway, so you grew up and you started looking through things like what I've been taught all my life is bullshit, as I was gonna say. And I more agree with what the atheists or skeptics are thinking. What made you now have a voice in this community to do more than just sit around and just sit there?
Well, honestly, like that was my goal at first, because I realized,
Oh,
because
okay.
at one point I was actually being groomed to be a preacher in this denomination. I was being taught to, stand in front of people and like lead Bible studies or Sunday school and stuff. And, that was really what they were pushing me to do. So when I left, and I realized that everything I had been taught was wrong, my first instinct was like, oh, I've been running my mouth about things I have no idea about. I need to sit down and shut up. Like, I need to start learning some stuff. And so that's really what I intended to do, because I'm like, I've seen like people who were raised like me, who reached levels of leadership in the church, get out and immediately start trying to take that position in the secular world and stuff. And I'm not saying that, there's not room for that, but in my case, I knew that I had a lot of learning to do before I started talking again. Um, Really, it was right about 2016 that I started speaking up, at least among my friends, about my experiences, because I saw the cult that I had left coming after me, as it were, and the rest of the country. When Donald Trump was elected, I was like, well, yeah, this is the goal all along. And everything having to do with how he got into power and who was supporting him, I said, this was the dream. This is what I was taught we were gunning for all those years. And I really started speaking publicly after my dad died in 2020. I I've been going to therapy, which go to therapy, everybody. Like healthy people go to therapy, especially if you come from a high control religious background. I cannot emphasize that enough. And we were working through the grieving process, me and my therapist. And she knew my story, and she said, she said, you have quite a story. And she said, maybe as part of working through the grief of what you experienced in your family and with your dad and such, she said, why don't you write out your story? I said, well, I can't really write that kind of stuff. Like something weird happens in my brain when I do, and I just kind of dissociate for a while. And she said, well, you should find a way to tell it somehow. She said, you do comedy and stuff, which I do locally. She said, why don't you act your story? And I said, well, no one's going to listen to middle-aged man complains about his life for an hour. That's called stand-up, and I do improv. It's a different thing. But then she was like, well, you'll find something. And so I was like, well, there is this little app, TikTok at the time. I was like, it does have you limited to like 60 seconds at a time. So if I break my story down into smaller segments, maybe I can do it that way. So I just started putting it out there as supplement to my therapy, really. And anybody who wanted to listen, I was like, sure. I mean, if you get something out of it, fine. And through that, I actually made a lot of friends, some of whom had also gone through IBLP and fundamentalism in general. I met a lot of people in the secular world, secular activists, and eventually I got to meet up with the people who were producing Shiny Happy People, and I offered like some of my videos because I knew they were going to be talking about IBLP, and I said, well, I've done a lot of videos on the subject, and you're welcome to use any of them. And they were like, well, actually, we want to talk to you directly. And so that led to me actually participating in the docuseries, and ever since then I was like, well, now that people are actually listening, I'm just going to keep talking about how what I was raised in corresponds with the mess we see today and what their ultimate goals are. Because what got me was I didn't know that so many people were caught off guard by what Trump and the MAGA movement were pushing forth. I was like, oh, I grew up with all this. This is I could tell you what they're doing, and if you want to get caught up, I can give you the full version. So yeah, I've just been using whatever platform I can get on to just try to raise awareness. Oh, I think you're muted there.
I'm muted. Okay. Why did they name it Shiny Happy People? I was always confused about that.
So one of the executive producers, and I had never heard of the term before, but one of the executive producers, apparently, like her production partner, said that hearing all of our stories kind of reminded her of the REM song "Shiny Happy People," and so they kind of like tied it to that because truly we were told in IBLP that we were supposed to be, letting our light so shine before men, and that meant having a smiling countenance and drawing people to Jesus through our smile and passing along any praise that we got to Bill Gothard and our parents and stuff, and basically being examples of what a Christian should be. We were told that we were like the Christian Marines. We were supposed to be going out there in the world and really like showing what Christianity could be, and really all we were doing was making Bill Gothard and his friends rich.
Now we all know what REM's best song is. Losing My Religion. We already
Oh
know
yeah.
that. So,
Ironically enough, yeah, they kind of correspond.
we already know that's their best song. Hold on. Okay.
Hey, that's me in the corner.
Okay. So, where do you see yourself going from here? Because I've seen you speak in a lot of places, in a lot of channels, and all that stuff. Where do you see yourself from coming from here? What are your goals or things that you see that you want? Yeah, that's me in the spotlight.
That is an excellent question, and I mean, my goal from the beginning primarily has been the complete and utter destruction of the Institute and Basic Life Principles, IBLP. Because a lot of people, I think, got the mistaken impression after Shiny Happy People aired the season one that IBLP somehow folded. It did not. IBLP is still around today. They are a lot smaller than they used to be. They used to have tens of thousands of people come to their conferences. Now they can barely fill a room of, say, 300 people. I mean, they've greatly diminished. They're desperately trying to liquidate any assets that they bought. They used to have property on several continents. They now have sold most of that. It's dwindling, but in my opinion, the people who caused the harm are getting away with it. They are going to face absolutely no consequences for the harm they perpetuated. They're going to, take all the money and run. And if IBLP just quietly goes out with a whimper, then really nothing has been done to benefit those who are hurt. I want IBLP to be made an example of. And the reason for that, yes, I understand, they're not the powerhouse and the influence they used to be. But in my opinion, they were one of the driving forces behind the version of Christian nationalism we see today. If you look at a lot of the politicians who are in charge these days, if you look at some of the power thinkers behind it, the Heritage Foundation, Michael Ferris, who has been instrumental in a lot of terrible Supreme Court cases that have been limiting the rights of marginalized people, all these people had ties to IBLP at one point. And if we can show that no institution that supports this is safe, and we're not going to tolerate just letting them get away with it and, never having to face accountability for what they did, I believe that will send a chilling effect through the rest of these organizations that are promoting Christian nationalism. So I'm like, hey, if we want to start seeing results, let's start with this cult. Let's tear it down. Let's go after it with everything we got. And let's put everybody else on notice, because I think that once we start to shake up the institutions from the source, then they're going to get sloppy and start making more mistakes and more things that we can go after them from. So that's been my goal all along. And my secondary goal, and I know it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime, but I just want to tear down American Christian fundamentalism, basically the white supremacist American fundamentalism that I grew up in. I want that to, die a very sudden and painful death too. I know it's going to take longer, but I think that once we do that, we're going to see a lot of change that we've been woefully behind on. So, yeah.
When you walked away from religion, was there anybody influential in your life that you looked up to try to be an example? It was an example for you.
Uh, in the way of like new heroes that I made after I left, or did I see people who
Yeah,
stayed?
basically after you left, or when you were deconstructing, and he was like, I watching Seth Andrews, for example. He was in that, for example. I
Hmm.
watch his videos, man. That's an example for me of somebody that I looked up to growing, when I was deconstructing. Was there anybody that you can name that you looked up to when you were deconstructing?
That is a
And
really
what
good
things did
question.
they do that made you want to, they inspired you? What things did they do to inspire you?
So of all things to really start to introduce me into the world of atheism and skepticism, I found the podcast God Awful Movies because I have always loved bad movies, and even when I was still a Christian and was trying to figure out what that meant for me, I was like, ooh, here's some people making fun of some of the movies that I grew up with. I didn't grow up with a lot of movies because fundamentalism, but some of the things that they talked about I had seen, and I was like, yeah, I love hearing what they talk about it. Not sure about the atheism, but that sounds interesting. And then eventually, the more I listened, the more I was like, okay, but they really make good points though. And then I started listening to the other podcasts that were associated, like Scathing Atheists, etc. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what they're saying now. And so podcasts were like a really big one. I think there was one, How to Heretic, at one point that I listened to. I became friends on TikTok with several atheist creators. Actually, Promise Backlund and we were friends like way back in the day when both of us were first starting. I think actually she and we were the first people with each other that actually did like a joint live on TikTok together. So yeah, she's been a great friend and someone I've really looked up to. And then when I went to I started going to conferences. I actually met Mandisa at Dragon Con of all places too. Yep. So and after Shiny Happy People, I actually had the privilege of speaking on the Skep Track. So yes, as I have been like navigating the world and seeing more and more speakers and thought leaders and such, I've really been taking inspiration like just from, especially right now. I think we're seeing like an increase here on YouTube and elsewhere of people who have different experiences. Like you said, um, you didn't know that there were different kinds of Baptists. I was aware that there were different kinds of Baptists growing up, but I thought they were all, just, um, secular brainwashed people that, I never really cared to hear about what they were taught. But now that I hear, stories like from you and others who grew up in very similar circumstances, I can start to piece together all the similarities of how these religions and cults worked. And there was actually a lot more in common than I think they wanted us to know. Because, yeah, yeah, the flim flam just always, it always works in very similar ways because, that's how you make money. Couldn't hear you there. Sorry. Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I got you now. Did I watch the Bible Reloaded series? A little bit, yes. I actually watched quite a bit of it back in the early days. I know, unfortunately, things kind of fell apart there in recent times, but that also was a very early influence on me too. I was like, anything that made fun of really bad Christian art, I was in. In fact, I missed out on most of it because, of all things, we were not allowed to listen to popular Christian music. In my denomination, we had to listen to things that were made over 100 years ago by people unironically named Fanny. So yeah.
It's crazy because Detroit is the gospel capital, and we be jamming. We like, hey, the gospel in Detroit, man. I mean, you be like, can you be dancing like that? That's gospel music. You be like, you be getting the flow. You be dancing, like really dancing, like circular dancing, as they say. But you realize it, like you dance like that's for God, and they have a fit.
Hmm. Which is funny because I've actually, since heard like Godless Gospel, and I fucking love it. Like it's I really love the beat. We weren't allowed to listen to anything with an audible beat or any kind of like really heavy syncopation. So, I've been catching up on a lot of music I missed.
Oh, that would have been hard for you. Now, I will say this because you did mention her name. Promise, if you watch my show, I want you on here. Okay, just know that. Okay.
Oh, I'll make sure she hears that.
I work nights, so if we got to do a recorded show, we can do that too. Okay.
Oh, muted there.
I was saying, is there any more questions for you in the chat besides the one asking you were you Native American?
Not that I'm aware. I I am from rural Alabama. Like most of my family is from rural Alabama, and I still live not too far away from Birmingham. I'm pretty sure part of my family tree is a wreath.
And we all. So this is one, and I asked before in another show. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say to them, especially because I know, like with me, I was questioning even before I left, like years before. What would you say to that younger self?
That is a good one. First of all, I would tell them don't panic, because I will say, just looking at me now, I'm probably like the worst case scenario of what I was scared I would grow up to be. What with the hair and the facial hair and stuff like that. But I would tell them like, hey, look, don't panic. First of all, second of all, that little voice in the back of your head that says I shouldn't be treated this way, because understand, IBLP and fundamentalism in general was very authoritarian. We were told that, things were right because they came from authority. We were doing divine command theory before it was cool. And unfortunately, that meant that if you questioned or if you did anything even a little bit out of line, you would get abused physically a lot. I was, and I'm just going to put this out there. This is a little tough to hear for some of you who may have grown up like this, but I was actually at times beaten to the point where I couldn't register an emotional response. The goal was to get me to stop reacting in any way, and they succeeded several times. My parents did say that their goal was to break my will. They considered me to be a strong-willed child, and sometimes they would introduce me to even complete strangers at church as the kid we spanked the most. Um, so I grew up with a constant fear that if I did one thing wrong or out of place, that I would be hurt for it. And I was told that was what love was. Matter of fact, my dad even told me, because I know that a lot of times in atheist debates we'll bring up that, oh, well, in God's law, you were supposed to stone kids for being insolent. And to a lot of Christians, that's news to them. It wasn't news to me because my dad would literally use that as the example, saying, hey, we're taking it easy on you. In Israel, you would have been stoned to death. So I was told that that was what love was. And I was told that that was how God expresses love to me, and that was how my parents were supposed to express it to me as well. So I would tell my younger self, I'm like, you don't deserve that. You deserve better. Love isn't intentionally hurting someone just because they upset you. That's not what love is, and there is love on the other side of this. Also, I would probably tell him to go ahead and make that call to CPS because I threatened to do that a few times.
Yeah. Now both things muted. Okay, because I don't want to
Info.
echo no more. So but anyway, that's like with me, and a lot of times in the Black community, we were abused. Uh because sadly in history we'd rather spank our children than to have the overseer, the slave master beat them because they could kill them. So that's what our dominance came from. But anyway, so I can remember one time my mother, what I did, but my mother like snatched me up, and so I ended up calling the CPS or calling the 911 people. But guess what? My mother was a teacher, was a very prominent teacher in our area, and there were a lot of people. At that time, she maybe taught like 20 something years, and she retired at 40 years of teaching. So a lot of people she knew, and so that person knew the 911 person knew my mother.
Hmm.
I would go to the school. I need help. And they be like, your mom ain't do nothing to you.
Hmm.
She wouldn't do anything.
That's
You know, my father was even worse.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah, so I understand, you know. And when I started having my children, I would beat them like that, but I was harsh with them. You're not gonna raise you like this. And you realize that's not right. So I sit down and I talked with them and everything like that. My daughters, we have like a great relationship. It takes a lot, you know. And I did bring up, the church. You must go to church. But that's how it was in the 80s, though, Miranda. It's sad. When I was in school, teachers were able to capital punish children. I was like fourth, fifth grade is when they stopped. But yeah, a teacher could actually paddle you. So that's what happened. So, the teacher sometimes the parent would want my mother to put their hands on their child. But my mother wasn't abusive like that. I'm gonna say that. She was more so mentally abusive than to me. But it was a few times that she did. And so she had to stop putting her hands on me because I bruise so easily. I can't let that happen. So I can't spank you. I have to punish you some other kind of way.
That's a
But
messed up reason to stop punishing you like that.
yeah, but that was my life and what I dealt with and everything like that. So yeah, we dealt with a different type of so I'm trying to think of something else to add.
But I think you bring up a really good point, though. Like, it does take a lot to raise children, and even though I don't have any children of my own, just the thought of, especially considering what I had growing up as an example, it's really daunting to think about, like, what you need to do, and you've raised children, and you've done a much better job, but to me, it's very daunting, and I think that's how cults like IBLP came to power, because they told parents that we have the answers, we have the proven system, that if you just follow these directions, you don't have to worry about your kids turning out right, because they will. And even though Gothard himself was never married or had kids, he claimed to have all these insights from the Bible to make it easy or whatever. And that's how cults work. They get people who are daunted or who are facing like a challenge in their lives, and they claim to have the easy answer. And before too long, you've been too invested to really back out. And I think that IBLP's big push was appealing to that fear that a lot of parents have. Like, I there really isn't a rule book. There are things you can do. There are things we're learning about psychology and stuff, but there isn't like a manual, and IBLP claimed to have it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really not. And but having now, I would have went back, but I'm raising my children how I was raised and forcing them to go to church because, even if I was sick or I had to go to work, somebody from the church will pick them up. They'll be so mad. But now, but why critical thinking? Because, so my oldest is a bluntly an atheist. My second is more agnostic. But I don't know. And then my third, like he's an atheist too. And my other two, I don't know what the hell they're doing. But yeah, so we be sitting there like laughing and talking, like when we go somewhere and some people in church and they'll be praying, eating, like at a restaurant, and we just be sitting there looking at each other like. That's so funny. Like when you somewhere and you don't bow your head, you look around, and other people ain't bowing their head either. You're like, oh, okay. I didn't know my cousin was. I see you. I see you. It'd be
that
so
that's
funny though.
that's what I love about those situations. Like you immediately see the people who you're like, okay, you're cool.
Like, like because even when I went to my cousin's funeral over the summer, and there was, and I was nice. I held hands and stuff. Let's pray holding hands. I did all that, but I didn't like. I was the only one not doing it around my head. Okay. I was silent too, but I'm not silent. Everybody knows. And so they're kind of like, I don't know if you call them respectable to a certain point because they ask me how do I feel about them doing certain things. This is a church. I'm coming here to give my last respects to my cousin, whoever passed. So I'm this is what you doing here. As long as you're not doing it outside and making me do it any other time. I bow my head, whatever. I'm not gonna pray, but I'm respectable to you. This is your area. That's you have to understand. Is like I'm not trying to take away anybody's. Like I'm an atheist. I'm not going to take away your rights to pray if you want to pray. If you want to believe in that delusional crap, that's your business. But don't force everybody else to believe that ideology. Please, that's where my problem comes from, people. Please don't do that. I'm just trying to live my life. I'm trying to do good with how I see from a secular humanist point of view, which means I'm supposed to be good without God.
By the way, you do bring up an interesting point about the funerals, because I actually went to one recently, and when my dad died, of course, his funeral was very much like this experience. The entire funeral seemed to be an advertisement for Jesus. Like, and I sat there like in a recent funeral, and the gospel was presented by like 5 different speakers, and everybody in that church, I was sure 95% of them, thought at least that they had, asked Jesus in their heart and stuff like that. Probably 99%, I would be the one person in there probably that didn't, that very loudly did not think that. But as I was sitting there, I was just like, someone died, and we're supposed to be like thinking about what they meant to us and their legacy. We're supposed to be sharing. There was maybe only 2 of those people who really shared, nice stories and memories of the person who had passed. And I was like, so what's the rest of this for? Like, is this for is this genuinely to like get the word and the gospel out, or is this normalizing the story so that nobody thinks this is weird in the most vulnerable time? Like maybe just hearing it over and over is part of the indoctrination, and it is really sad. And like you said, I mean, I'm not going to like stand up at the funeral and say this is bullshit. I'm not. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to be respectful too, and maybe that's how that person wanted their funeral to go. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's like it really does emphasize just how much it dehumanizes people to have that crap done at every turn, even when you're supposed to be mourning and grieving and trying to remember the good times you had with people.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, I did have another question. I wrote some notes down, trying to get the notes. Um,
Oh,
do you now deal with any religious organizations with your activism?
not as such. I do have friends who are progressive Christians. I actually spoke at a convention and got to meet April LaJoy last year, who is prominent like more progressive Christian, and she's worked with secular conferences and organizations, because I mean, I do feel that we're going to need people who can reach Christians better than I can because immediately there's a little bit of a barrier when I talk to a Christian, like, well, you're an outsider, you wouldn't understand. I'm like, oh, trust me, I understand, but we have to go through a lot of backstory for you to get where I'm coming from. And I think that, certain progressive Christians as such have a big advantage there. As a matter of fact, right after Shiny Happy People season 1 aired, I was actually recognized here in Birmingham, because Birmingham is a big small town. A group of women recognized me at the farmers market, and I was wearing very atheist coded t-shirt, and they were like, oh, but you left the church. I was like, well, yeah. And they said, well, for the next like 5 minutes they all like took turns trying to proselytize. And I told them at one point, I was like, okay guys, I said, look, I know what you're doing and I could probably do it better than you, to be perfectly honest, but um if you watched that series and your takeaway was I'm the problem, you missed the point. Said, I'm okay. Like I've left. I'm living my best life. I'm doing better. But what's happening and what I was showing in that docuseries is happening in your house. I said, these are your people that are doing this. And instead of coming after me, why don't you talk to the people in your churches? Because I know you know some who are acting this way. And one of the ladies said, and I'll never forget, she said, well, I'm more of a Jesus person than a church person. And I said, that's convenient, isn't it? I said, because that absolves you of any responsibility of of what's happening. And I said, you can talk to your people better than I can. So why don't you go, take this as an opportunity to say, hey, maybe we need to reevaluate what we're doing here in our churches. And I hope they took something away from that. I doubt they did. But when I talk to progressive Christians and religious organizations like that, like, that's my appeal. I'm like, look, what happened to me is happening in your house. Fix it.
Yeah, I hate that. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, or some kind of thing they say, trying to offset what goes on in the church, But
Well,
then
and
it's like, hold on, you go ahead, finish your thought.
oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that really brought to mind one of the worst things I keep hearing online is that, oh, well, that was just people in the church that hurt you. You weren't hurt by Jesus. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought the church was supposed to be the body of Christ. Like, you can't be the body of Christ. You can't be the church. You can't be God's representative on earth and then back away whenever something uncomfortable happens. I'm sorry, that's not how this works. I know y'all's terminology, and it doesn't jive like that. So you can't pick and choose like that.
Yeah, that's like when something goes on bad, like now we got the Christian nationalist people coming in, boom, boom, boom. And so people will say God is good all the time. And I'm like, but he's allowing this to happen right now. Slavery,
Mm,
this other stuff to happen. But he's good all the time though. He's not good right now. Because he's
mm,
seeing it happen. He's not doing anything but let it happen. Oh, but they're gonna go. Those people are gonna go to hell for what they're doing. But guess what? Me and you are gonna go to hell too, because we don't believe in him.
yeah, it's it's just nonsense, and it it goes to the whole, like, people will justify whatever they want to do through the Bible. Like, it's almost as if the Bible is a inherently contradictory collection of stories that weren't meant to be put together in the first place. Like, when you have a shaky foundation like that, you can justify any atrocity, you can justify any nonsense you want. Like, it really infuriates me whenever I hear Mike Johnson quoting scripture, because I know, that, because I know a lot of people will say, like, oh, but the Bible also says this and you're ignoring that. I'm like, it doesn't matter to him. This man is literally using the parts of the Bible that give him power. The only virtue in fundamentalism and Christian nationalism is power. That's it. So you can point to other scriptures till the cows come home, but it's not going to change them.
Yeah, I have a train of thought because I always do that at least once a show. That's like I see like some people, and even when I was in church, it kind of irritated me. They go to church once a year, maybe Easter, but then they want to talk about how religious they are, how God they are, and I'm like, I don't see you doing anything religious except once a year. But now that I'm an atheist, you want to shun me down. But isn't it worse that you're lukewarm? Because they talked about that in Corinthians, about being lukewarm. You're not either hot or cold. So you're actually worse than me. Because at least I'm cold all the way cold. That just got me. Oh,
I
look what we
love
have
that.
here. Oh, this the celebrity.
Oh, hey, what's up? Hey, Casey.
Yeah. How are you, beautiful? Oh, look. Oh, I got you. Yeah, that's what gets me. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, you're not doing what are you? I am doing more in my community than you are, or more in the general population. Because I'm going to help you regardless of what religion. Because even when I was in a church, I helped people with suitcases and stuff, and I did not have them go to service or do something to jump hoops in order to get that free meal or whatever I was trying to give. I just gave it to them because they needed it, like some other churches. So I guess I was a humanist. So even before I knew I was one.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
got in
that's just
trouble one
crazy.
time at one of my old churches for doing that. Like we were having a community-wide Thanksgiving meal, but you had to go watch a Jesus film in order to get a damn meal. And this one lady came up and like right to the front door, and she said, "Young man," she said, "I've been a Christian all my life, and I got a hip problem, and I ain't walking through all that just to get a meal." I said, "Man, come right on in." I got in trouble for that. They were like, "Isn't she supposed to do the thing?" I was just like, "Okay, you tell this poor woman who's hobbling around on a cane that she needs to walk half a mile, through this whole like watch a Jesus movie and walk past these people who want to pray with her just because she's hungry." Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. You know?
I had to watch this. Now, it was this one church, and it gave us a lot of items for your children, formula, whatever, a lot of stuff. But you had to sit there and watch, especially if you were, so you had to watch, it was either, let's say, a video about abortion where they actually showed you what happened, or you had to watch one about the SDIs. One of those videos, you had to watch this whole video in order to receive services.
That's messed
Because
up.
you were married and you had children. You had to watch those two videos.
Oh, that's
So that's what I. So yeah, I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I gotta watch this. Well, without marriage, like, lady, this is what's gonna happen to you.
like,
So
okay.
yes,
Can I have
yes,
the formula now? Because that's really the problem here.
yeah. I don't. Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been, with the father of my children for years. But okay, go figure.
Mhm.
Oh, so this interesting question. Our beautiful Bree always has questions. How was Halloween growing up, Chad?
Whoo, that's a can of worms. Yeah, we did not do Halloween. One second. Yeah, we did not do Halloween at all, because we thought that certain toys were demonic. So anything involving the Day of the Dead and all that was definitely so. We had at my church growing up what we called fun night, where we would bring in all the kids, we give them candy, and then we'd like do skits at church. Now, understand, I was in rural Alabama. No one did like trick or treating out that way because you'd have to walk like half a mile to get to the next house. So what they were bringing us in and protecting us from, I have no clue. They did allow us to dress up like one year, and then the next year they said, yeah, that was a bad idea. So everybody just come in like, Wednesday night clothes. We call them like kind of business casual. And of course, we'd have to have a mini sermon beforehand because you can't do anything without talking about Jesus. But yeah, we would like do skits and stuff, and that was pretty much it. Now, of course, when we moved to Europe, I mean, it was a lot different because they didn't do Halloween over there like we do here. But yeah, we were taught that it was like a demonic celebration that was, you know, intended to bring people under the clutches of Satan. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with like the whole pantheon of chick tracks, but like there is literally a chick track where they try to make the case that witches intentionally sacrifice children on that night through poison candy and stuff. It's just all a bunch of nonsense.
But I know that when I was a child, they used to call it like the Harvest Fest or
Oh,
something like that, where it was Halloween. But it was you did the same thing that you did during Halloween time, but this was named different. Um, Until you asked me a question, it was more of the propaganda, I would say, that can really show the actual surgery, what happened. But yeah, it was more of the propaganda kind of stuff of it. Now, I know when I was a child, you would have loved to hang with me because my mom always did the greatest Halloween party. So we always would go out, they take the basement, the yard. My mom was really big with Halloween. So you would have loved being there. And I remember one year mom went and bought the first, it just came out like hours before she ran and found us the Michael Jackson Thriller. So he showed that. No,
Okay, that
but then when I
rocks.
was yeah, so we had a lot of fun. And my uncle would come dressed and stuff, and but it was like real 80s type of party, but still was fun. So all the kids, neighborhood, and one thing, my mom, she was like, if you invite your neighbors to everything, they can't complain if you're too noisy because they was invited anyway.
That's
So you
smart.
invite out your neighbors so they won't complain about the noise
Hey,
because they're
they're causing
invited.
it.
Yeah, they're causing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, speaking of
Oh,
which,
but
when we did dress up that one year, a lot of kids like did the generic Halloween costumes, and this was like maybe 1 or 2 years before we joined IBLP and we shut down our TV altogether. But at that age, I thought that Steve Urkel was the coolest character on TV. So I actually dressed up like Steve Urkel, just the clothes. So like I had like the nerdy shirt and the glasses and the suspenders and all that. And that was my favorite Halloween costume. The one time I got to dress up for fun night, that costume, I still have a picture of it somewhere. That was like my favorite thing because I thought Steve Urkel was so cool.
Urkel, but not Stefan.
This was pre Stefan. Like yeah, Stefan came much later. We're talking like early '90s.
Yeah. That's later. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's later. That's later.
yeah.
Yeah, like so I went to Catholic schools I talked about before. So the little kids, first through the second, the kids dressed up too, but some of them didn't want to dress up. And they would go and dress up and they would go to each of the older classes and model around their little costumes. So it was like so cute, you know. But then I got mad because when I got in the seventh, eighth grade, they started letting little kids do it. I said, "Well, I want to see the little kids. We did it." So they stopped letting them wear costumes. When I got like in this eighth grade, I was like, "That was bold." I like the little kids walking around me, looking cute, and be all
Hmm.
packed, give them candy and stuff. That was cute for me. But yeah, but they was like, "Ooh, that was
Now
bold."
I have to know what was your favorite Halloween costume growing up.
Oh man, I did a lot of Halloween costumes. I'm trying to think what would be my favorites. I did Wonder Woman a few times, and I will say that when I was a kid, I don't know if you remember Underoos. We used to run around the neighborhood with our Underoos on, like outside.
That's amazing.
I'm trying to think that what would be my I was Prince recently a couple years ago. I did Prince, but that was like grown when I was grown.
Mhm.
I'm
Oh,
trying to think.
grown up Halloween is so awesome, isn't it? Like now that you
Yeah,
actually have the budget to do a costume.
yeah, I did Prince, and my youngest was Michael Jackson. So he was walking around at the Motor City Comic Con with our. But I didn't take no pictures though that year. But yeah, for me it was Prince, and I was my Prince. She was Michael Jackson. So that was kind of funny though. I'm trying to think of what costume really would I have done. I remember when I had to do a report and I dressed up as Josephine Baker for I did her in a report. So I had to dress up as her, Josephine Baker. They got kind of mad because of her doing her dancing and stuff like that. Because I didn't dance, but they were kind of mad because they consider her like a stripper kind of person. Like, no, she's more than that. But yeah, they got kind of mad that I was Josephine Baker that year. But yeah.
Well, sports.
Oh, Steve's here. Hey, Steve. So, if you don't know, 2:15 Eastern Standard Time. So, right after this, Steve and Seth are going to have their premiere of their video they did together on Amber's Apostate's channel. I do not have the linky thing, the power, linky power. I can transfer videos over to another one. So I don't know you that hammer yet. So Leo put the link in. We're gonna probably have the link right before we end this, so you guys can go right over. And we've seem that 50 minutes, 55 minutes kind of went by kind of fast.
Yeah, it did. I will say too, like
So
I love that we're to the point where you can basically just have a stream of content all day. Like you're done with this, you can hop on to the next thing. Like that is just chef's kiss. Oh, you're muted.
Deviant, hold on, yeah, I do it all the time. This is a Deviant. Wow, that's cool. I think I was
One
like
quarter.
Cleopatra one year too. I was Cleopatra one year, trying to get. So I'm gonna let you go. Plug yourself. Let
Sure.
everybody know where to find you and how to get to you.
So mostly I'm on TikTok these days. I'm got a few things in the hopper that I'm working on, but you can find all my appearances, podcast, including this appearance on my link tree. The link tree is Archradish. And if you can't remember Archradish, it's just Chad Harris mixed up. I thought I was being cute. And you can find me on TikTok there. Sometimes I do lives on Sunday. I do a Sunday morning not church. And if you're really lucky, you can catch me trying to get people to prove that God exists with a banana. Yes, there is a very specific reason I'm using that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun times. Come see me out there and continue to support Kelly and all your other atheist creators too, because we got some good ones out here.
Yeah, I which if I would have known you were so um open, I would have spoke to you at NeoCon, but
Oh yeah.
I still have that it's me and my thought process because of how I was treated as a child. I was like kind of bullied and stuff. Like I couldn't bully like, physically because I could fight, but they were mentally trying to torment me. So I was like, they're not gonna like me, so I'm not gonna speak. Even now, I do that. I see people in the conference, and I would not speak to them. Oh, that's not
Well,
even then. It's anybody that I don't know personally. I would never be the first one to say hi to the person. But if they speak to me, then I'm open and I'll speak back. But I walk past you 50 million times a day and won't say anything to you
well, I
unless you
tell
say
you
something to
what.
me first.
Well, I tell you what. Next time we're at a conference together, I'm making it my personal mission to find
I
you
know you're
and
not
talk
even
to
know
you.
so on the street.
Yeah.
I will see you first now
Oh,
because
I
I
will
know
find you
you.
first now. That's happening.
That's
And I do I do
ridiculous.
want to throw this out there to like anybody. Like I don't attend a lot of conferences, but if you do see me, come up and say hi. I am a chronic extrovert. I am not shy.
I am just the opposite. Now, like I said, right after this, Steve and Seth, Amber's Apostate, they're doing a premiere on their video. And also 8 p.m., yours truly will be on Truth Wanted, or Eastern Standard Time. So it'll be 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 um, Pacific. I remember everything. But yeah, I'll be on Truth Wanted tonight. 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. And tomorrow, I'm doing a recorded video earlier in the day. I won't say with who. You'll see when it comes up. But I'm also going to be on Neil 604's show. Followed
Great
by
guy.
Sunday, I'll be on Punk Apostate's channel. So that's what I'm doing over the weekend. And if anybody wants to be interviewed, I have a few days off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll be free in the evening for evening interviews. Who wants to interview in the evening? To kind of get to me because I have my daytime interviews. Let me know. We can schedule something. Till then, I thank you for tuning in to Secular Activism Unfiltered. I'm gonna think of a catchphrase to say at the end. Oh, I know what I was saying. Building the community one heathen at a time. Secular Activism Unfiltered. There you go. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride.